Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Need to Nerd podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co-host, a man who, in my opinion, would take the time to help Black War Greymon find his heart, Wes Singleton.
Is that a question? I get to be in the same room as Black War Greymon?
Yeah. Is Black War Greymon the best Digimon character of all time?
There's a lot of really good Digimon characters out there. How do you make me pick that
But this one makes children question reality, love, humanity, compassion, the meaning of life.
Yeah, but Gargamon's a big bunny with guns on its hand.
Hey, man, I'm just saying. We are not here to talk about Black War Greymon. We'll do that on the Season 2 review of Digimon Adventure. Instead, we are here to talk about Season 4 of My Hero Academia. We've done Season 3. We've done Season 2. We've done Season 1. That's how you do it. You don't just skip around. You got to do them sequentially. And,
That's how they made them.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing, West. Here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I posted a Twitter poll before we tried to record this last week, before my internet just decided to stop working. And I asked people, is this the best season? And the first response was no. And last time I checked it, it was 50-50 tied that either this was the best season or it was not. Which,
that is a good sign, because that means that 50% of people disagree about which of the other three seasons.
Right, that's the thing, right? Is like, that's pretty good numbers. If you want to talk about what the best season of anime of all time is, in my opinion, spoiler alert, I think it might be this.
Season 1 of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood? No.
Isn't that only one season?
It's also really sad.
I don't know that has seasons. I think it
has books. There's volumes.
Okay. I think it's
like a mini season. It's like in the literal term of as the world turns, seasons change. 50 episodes is split up into groups of 4.
But yeah, I think, if you want to talk about this, whether you're a Full Metal Alchemist fan, My Hero fan, whatever it is, our Discord is a great place to talk about it. We've got fantasy football going on in there. Magic spoilers and Magic Popper have been popping recently.
Popper's back.
Popper could be back. It could be back.
Popper might also be still just another degenerate combo format because the tools are still there.
Who knows? But if you want to support the show directly, head on over to patreon.com/HeezyGameMedia. It's the best place to do that. But if you want the nerd fact of the week this week, this is the place to get it. And that nerd fact is that in the original version and the concept of My Hero Academia, West, this was much better when we got your live reaction from the original recording. But
you almost had it, because I almost forgot what it was.
Oh, man. That's too bad. Is that Uraraka was originally designed to be what is now Mount Lady. Or I guess Mount Lady was originally designed to be.
That's the only answer I really have.
So here's what happened: is originally Uraraka was going to be older. She was going to have Mount Lady's quirk, and her design was really similar. It was basically like you put Mount Lady's costume on Uraraka and give her quirk, and that was this older character love interest.
So she would have been in a different year?
Yeah, she actually would not have been in Deku's class, is my understanding.
Well, that changes a lot of their interactions.
Well, I think that also the show probably changed, which is why they had to change things up. But yeah, isn't that weird to think about? Like a whole. It's like the whole Star Killer version of Star Wars, where you have a Lasat and a single character as the protagonists. Like Luke Starkiller or whatever his name was, which was a combination of
Han Solo, pre-Chewbacca,
which was a combination of Han Solo and Luke, were originally one character. It's crazy to think about, and seeing that in this was something that was really surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that worrying about what ifs is always like an interesting game, but. I think I don't know. I'm happy it ended up where it was, because I think Uraraka is a fantastic character, and Mount Lady is fun comedic relief. Yeah. So good to have them in separate areas.
I think so too. Also, I just want to mention that I did slip in Star Wars for this week's episode. So West's opinion that I always do that is apparently true.
I'll never mention the things I love either.
Let's talk about something I love, which is My Hero season 4, West. People might notice that we're going a little bit fast this week. West, we have to record at a different time because I got stuff going on, and you've got to hang out with my buddy to play D&D. I got to ask you because I've never asked you this. What is your class?
Oh, in that game right now, I'm playing a druid.
What race?
Technically she is undead. She's a reborn.
Okay.
But she's elf in her true
got it
racial identity.
There are no elves or in season 4, but there are some undead. If you want to get real specific, but we learn about that.
Yeah, technically, I guess.
Yeah,
that's like a season 5 spoiler, though, right?
Kind of a little bit. Let's talk about season 4. What is season 4 of My Hero Academia, West?
Well, it's the one that comes after season 3. We did cover that already. It is 25 episodes long. It covers the chapters of the manga, based on a manga, like most anime, of 125 to 190, and then gets into a little bit of chapters 192, 193. I don't know what happened in chapter 191, but I guess it's a secret.
That chapter has to be like...
filler chapter.
No, I'm sure it's not a filler chapter. I'm sure that it's like part of the... I don't know. Now I'm interested. But yeah, anyway, keep going.
Yeah, it premiered in Japan on October 12th of 2019 and continued through April 4th of 2020. So it was, and the dub was premiering from November 9th to June 28th. So it was pandemic fodder.
So fun fact for those who are dub fans like I am, I prefer the dub. I do watch the sub, but I actually think that I watched most of the season dub first. Just because life had been crazy at the time in 2020, but one of the interesting things is if you had watched the second My Hero movie, you had already been introduced to Hawks, but he's not introduced until the end of this season. So it's really interesting kind of stuff and understanding like when things fall in different timelines. So
yeah, this season is in a lot of ways about introducing us to like the actual pro hero scene on a broader level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even from the first arc.
Well, and it's that examination, right, of now that All Might is not number 1 and Endeavor stepped in at number 2. However, it's not a strong number 1, or Endeavor stepped in at number 1 from number 2, right? It's no longer like an immutable number 1, and so everyone's in play.
Right.
And that's why the story is opening up all these different pro heroes, and they're, our characters are building connections with them as well, because that's where they're getting placed at agencies.
Yeah.
But really, it's all about that competition.
Yeah. Really quickly, just for those at home, this season covers 4 distinct arcs. Really, the beginning. It's really 3 distinct arcs. And then
sets up the next season.
Sets up the next arc. But we have the Hazaki arc, the Remedial Course arc. It goes 15 episodes, 3 episodes. Then you have 6 episodes of the Student Festival arc. And then 2 episodes for the Pro Hero arc, which is really the beginning of the Endeavor arc in a lot of ways for the manga and for the anime.
Yeah.
And which is funny because, that's what manga fans were excited for going into this season. They knew that we would probably end up, because of the number of episodes that you get, they knew that we would enter this Endeavor area of the show, and it was the thing talked about on the internet from manga fans that were excited for us anime fans to kind of get to see it. So let's talk about our first thoughts, spoiler free. I'm going to go first on this one, West. I actually looked through some of my text messages, and there is an episode called Red Riot.
Oh yeah,
and I text my friend Mason Clark, and I said that was not only the best episode of My Hero I've ever seen, that might have been the best episode of any anime I've ever watched. And I didn't care nearly enough about this character before this episode. That was amazing. And I think that, in all honesty, this season does that a lot of times. Whether it's the ending with Endeavor, whether it's the new characters that you get introduced with. I mean, if you think about it, at the end of season 3, we get the big 3 introduced, right? And by the end of this season, like, you love and care about those big 3. This season is like equivalent, if not better, to season 2 for character building. Like, it is crazy how much amazing character building and how much amazing addition to these things that we already love about these characters. And some of the characters are sidelined for a lot of this, right? You have 15 episodes.
This is like Bakugo's least important season.
Well,
in a lot of ways. I mean, he's around, but
yeah.
he's not taking an active participation in the first half of the season.
Yeah, that's true. In the first 15 episodes, it is not a Bakugo season, but I think that you get a lot from a lot of different characters. And I mean, I've already said that I think this might be the best season of anime of all time. And also, my opinions on some of the arcs have changed since my rewatch that I'm excited to get into. What about you? Spoiler free. What do you got?
Oh yeah, I mean this season's really tight because it has, I think, a central theme, and I think it in a lot of ways closes on that central theme by the end, which is, what does it mean to be heroes in a society post All Might? And
I'm going to spoil this. I am going to cry this episode. You're already making me cry.
Yep. And I think actually we really see it in a lot of ways. We see fighting on a scale that I think it's thought that only All Might could handle. We see a solid showing from a lot of these different pro heroes. What can they do? How can they show that they're still going to work on it?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. I think it's a huge season of growth. It's, I think, the season where, in so many ways, Midoriya. That's bad. That's the one I was stumbling on. Midoriya is confirms why he wants to be a hero, who he's a hero for, and I think it's the first time where he truly sets his sights on a character who isn't an adult, on another, like the person he is trying to surpass, he's trying to be the same as, is like more or less appear in his eyes with Mirio.
Let's move on to we just have to get into overall impressions. If you haven't watched this season yet, you're catching up. I encourage you to go catch up. This is actually one of the more bingeable seasons in my opinion.
The first 15 episodes are so cohesive that it goes quick.
Yeah, you actually probably won't be able to put down the first 15 episodes. I think that
not once you get started. No.
Yeah, and I think that, if there's one thing I could say is that the end of the season is so good. The last 2 episodes are so good that even though there is 3 episodes that I think probably the filler arc was worse than I
like that arc.
Oh, that's good. I think a lot of people did. I liked it too. We'll get into it in my Could Be Betters. Or, I don't know if it's Could Be Better. Anyway, you should go watch it. We're going to get into overall impressions. Once again, I'm going to go first. I've kind of given this high-level look, but I think that there's so much here. Midoriya learning that All Might was going to the school to pick a successor, and then just, picked him before he got there, so had to confront all these people hey, I know that I'm supposed to be a teacher here to pick the person I'm going to give the clerk to,
found him.
But he's over here, and they
training him for this next class,
and he's these people are probably who is this nerd? What are you doing? And the best part is Midoriya's. I mean, Izuku just has this inherent thing, he's really. I'm going to say this every time. He's like me in a lot of ways where he overthinks everything. And it's fine that he does that, but it certainly stresses him out. And I think that he stressed himself out really bad about this.
Do you think it stresses him out more, or
the people around
his
him?
3 closest friends?
Well, I mean, that's this. Once again, we're talking about the same thing that I probably do to people, and I don't know what to tell you. but I think that this was a real. I don't know. This, first of all, I think that it probably hurt Midoriya's feelings and he wasn't ready to admit it. I think he does by the end of that first arc admit this. Yeah, I don't know. that moment, I'll get into that in favorite parts, but Midoriya learning that about Mirio, and Mirio just is like one of the coolest characters. I think that my overall impressions of this season are just one of maybe the best arc in anime history. I mean, I'm not even gonna say, like, I believe that this is the best.
There's so many fights in that are just so freaking cool.
Not just the fights though, but
and
the intense moments, the stories, like learning more about so many, like so much happens in 15 episodes, and all of it is just gold. It honestly, and here's the thing is that My Hero has such a lighter tone than something like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but that arc is peak Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, it's the same. Like, I need a minute to like recover from what I just watched, and I don't know, like Mirio's point, and then like the last two episodes. It's funny because later the same text to Mason, I literally texted him. I said, I know that I said this Red Riot episode is the best, but the last two episodes of this season, I cried, I laughed at Hawk, like I felt all of the emotions, and I am now wondering if I'm going to root for a guy that I hate. Like, I want to root for him. I don't know that I am rooting for him in Endeavor, but I want to. Like, I want to see that redemption arc. I don't know, and this is a conversation. My wife, for those who don't know, was abused as a kid, and we've talked about Endeavor a lot. And it's like, and one of the questions I asked her is like, do you believe that Endeavor can be forgiven? That he could do anything to deserve it? And I mean, maybe one day we'll get her on to talk about that. I don't want to speak for her but it's been an interesting conversation to be married to somebody who's come from specifically an abusive father figure in her life before her mom remarried, and there is a lot in this show, in this season, and if you didn't cry when that girl smiled, you're a monster. Like, you have no soul, and that's kind of my overall impression. What about you?
Oh, I mean, you covered so much of it. I think that totally this is like, first off, it's a classic chase arc at the beginning of the season, and those are some of the best in anime because it's when you get those sweet one-on-ones. It's when you get those like emotionally charged fights where people are trying to prove themselves and are, so often like just fighting for everything on the line. Which I think is really cool because we've not gotten a lot of fights where it's one-on-ones and there's stakes on the line more than a tournament. So it was really cool to see those fights. I think that the answer to the question of All Might's absence in the form of Endeavor's final arc is really meaningful, is really impactful, it's really impressive, I think is a huge part of it, right? Like, it just goes so far out. There's a lot that's so sweet. I think that I really like the remedial classes. I really like their session with the kids. I think the kindergartners are really funny in my mind, and I live that life. So
I actually really love Todoroki in that specific part of like that. I don't know. I was impressed with Todoroki.
Yeah, I think that Todoroki is a character that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just as a character, like, he grows a lot, but he doesn't grow in a linear direction, I would say.
It's kind of like chunks of growth, right?
Yeah.
Like, he decides to make a change and then makes like big changes to himself. Where like,
he represents unlimited potential to begin with.
Yeah.
And so it's about how is he directing it.
Yeah. It's
and
really...
not necessarily like, it's about where his priorities are, not how good can he be, right? Like Midoriya, his priorities have 100% of the time been the same.
Yeah.
Right. Unchanging, and the way he grows to meet those priorities changes and certainly is enhanced over time. But Todoroki is a character for whom the whole world is his if he just chooses how he wants to interact with it. And so I'm always very impressed by the way he does so over time.
Anything else you want to say before we move on to favorite characters?
I don't think so. No, I'm very happy with all of it. I
kind of stole a lot of that segment. So I'm going to let you go first. And you're welcome to do two. Like, and I think that we'll probably share one, which is why I'm saying two. So go ahead and and not just the first arc. I know that like most of the show, it's also most of the episode, but like, who are your two favorite characters this season?
Oh man, I think that Mirio is obviously the huge win of this season, right? This is his season. The way that this season ends for him doesn't leave a ton of room for when he's going to be such a central character again anytime soon. And he will, I'm sure of it. But right now, it's not that. But I think that
wait, hold on. Are you telling me spoilers for season 5? By the way, are you telling me that floating down a river on your side is not an essential character during a test to help the other students?
That's so true. But that's my point. Actually, that proves my point. But this is his season, and I think he's admirable. And I don't think it's just on the first half of the season. I think that the way that he adapts to losing his quirk in the second half of the season is equally admirable, is equally powerful, and hard. But also, I think he's like an amazing character when he's like getting silly about like meeting the Class 1A for the first time, or when he's beating the crap out of them, or
yeah, from last season. I agree.
Yeah, he's just such an excellent character all around, and I think that he's important because of the way he plays with Sir Knight.
Yeah,
and their relationship's really meaningful to me as well. A second character I would pick to think is really cool this season is obviously Sir Knight. He's also
what is
Sir Knight-Eye.
Yeah, Sir Nighteye is what a I feel like
weird dude. What a weird dude.
No, I wish that we had gotten more. It's funny. Yeah. There's a OVA, I think it's called. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like this very short thing that was released that goes over All Might's successor dying and All Might realizing he's now the full, like, he's the only person left with one for all, and all I want is a spin-off All Might series at this point. Like, I just need it. I need it. I think that, and Sir Nighteye is like a huge reason why. I feel like we were robbed of something beautiful.
Do you think that would be like a One Punch Man style show? Not necessarily like as ironic as One Punch Man style, but like in terms of like, since most of the fights are kind of already decided, it's a lot about other things.
I don't know. Like, how did you feel about the Star Wars prequels, or how did you feel about the? I think that there's a lot coming from prequel series, that I would care about. Like, a really good example of this is I would love to see the prequel series about the Targaryen Stark love story. Like, I think that would be an interesting show. That, like, the Romeo Juliet Game of Thrones show would be.
Although, as far as we know, didn't All Might just kind of start out with like the moment he got the power, he was powerful, right?
Right, but the power gets more powerful as you pass it on, right? So if like Midoriya had gotten it before All Might, Midoriya also would have had an easier time doing it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that's different. I'm just saying that, like, in a lot of ways, All Might.
We don't need to go off about a spin-off series. We're gonna take up too much of our time.
Fair enough.
But I agree with you. My point is that I agree with you. It was so sad, like that moment where especially when he's talking to Mirio, right, where he's like looking at his future and, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry, and he tells him, right, that you're gonna be the most exceptional hero. Like, I just like had to pause my TV and I was just sobbing.
Yeah, it's a powerful idea. He's such a cool character. They both are, and I think that they're both the low-hanging fruit of like characters to pick for this season, but they're the exceptional part of this season in so many ways.
Yeah, my first pick was also Mirio, for what it's worth. And a huge part of that is, he has that moment at the beginning where he, instead of trying to be a hero, he's trying to not disappoint Night-Eye and not mess up. And you have that episode where they're all at the table and they're talking, and Mirio's really upset with himself. Like, he feels like a failure, and you see that play out. I mean, even his name, like, can we just... we all need a Lemillion in our lives. This dude is the
confidence.
the most, not just the confidence, the positivity. This is something that I tried to do on constructive criticism when I was a host, that I can't do it. Like, I can't be Lemillion. As much as I want to be like this positivity in people's lives, I also understand that, like, sometimes life sucks. And the thing that's so interesting to me about Lemillion and about Mirio is that, you know, he I'm gonna cry. It's funny. I would not have picked Lemillion before my rewatch. He is who I wish I was, which is really funny when you look at this season through Deku's eyes, where Deku is also like that. And
I wish I was that cool.
It just confirms. I was talking to Demery. She said the same thing. She's like, it just confirms that you are, like, you and Izuku are the same. And it's true. Like, I wish I was a Lemillion.
You cry as much as him. I'm not saying is a bad thing.
I cry as much as Deku, who cries more.
No, I'm saying like as Deku. No, not as Lemillion. Yeah. I'm saying when you're saying who you're like. Yeah.
Me and my wife make that joke all the time, and she thinks it's hysterical. But like, I wish I was more like him, and I think that while toxic positivity is bad, I don't think that Lemillion has any of that.
No.
Like, I think that his positivity is genuine and real. Like, you talked about how fun-loving he is, and when he's like bringing Eri to the school, he makes a joke showing his own butt and to call it a peach. Like, he is about other people.
Yeah.
And about self-sacrifice, and yeah. So he's my first. The second character in this, for me, was a little bit of surprise. Because I didn't think that I would ever have one of my favorite characters be a villain. But I really, I don't know that I even empathize with the villain, but like, who do you think?
Overhaul?
Yeah, I like Overhaul as a villain. I did not the first time I watched it. I was like, kind of thought he was boring, but he's interesting.
Well, yeah, I actually can fully agree with you on this one, in that he's, of the villains, which granted, I think that it's been in a pyramid of villains otherwise, right? Like, for most of the bad guys elsewhere in this show, they've all been under the one, like, incorporeal, uninteresting, all-powerful, unmotivated, right, in a clear sense, villain, right? Whereas, like, Overhaul stands apart because he has motivations, because he's got methods, because he has a personality and a set of goals that are shown over the course of this arc.
It's almost funny too, because one of the reasons that I find him so interesting is almost not as much him as much as, like, when you hear other people talk about him and you hear the experiences that they have around him, you're like, man, like, I hate you, and I cannot believe what kind of a person you've become, and I don't empathize with you. Like, it's kind of like that terrifying aspect that we kind of talked about in our villain episode. Where, like, Darth Vader's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, straight up terrifying. This is not a Magneto villain. Like, there's no part of me that's like,
we could work with him.
Yeah. This is like, you would do anything. Like, everybody has their line. I don't know that Overhaul does.
Yeah. I don't think he does. I mean, his fight certainly shows that he doesn't have a line. It shows that, like, he'll go to any amount of destruction, and he'll,
to himself. Like, he will
yeah. Like, I mean, his ability is so darn cool.
Yeah.
And, like, totally open-ended in a way that, like, he uses so well. Like, his fight is just so, like, over the top in so many ways.
What's your favorite storyline? It could be arc, it could be storyline. Like, you already mentioned the children, but I'm curious.
I think specifically how these characters define themselves in relation, or how like our characters who are in the work studies define themselves in relation to the older students in order to the in like I really like how Red Riot learns from Sun Eater. I really like the way that Deku takes what Lemillion's putting down for him. I think that even the while of course it's regrettable that they don't get as big of a role in this, I think that even how Uraraka learns from her mentor, whose name I'm totally not remembering right now.
Dude, there's so many characters in My Hero. It's
true.
Like, it's the dragon hero, right?
No. The other big three person.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would have known her name had I not been put on the spot. I know who you're talking about.
Okay. But totally,
it's
and I'm sure
Neji?
I'd believe it.
Okay.
It's not coming to me either right now.
Anyway,
but
keep going.
Clearly, what is so important here is that these characters are seeing who they'll become in a lot of ways, and also they got strengths relative to them as well.
Yeah.
And like I think that's especially true for Uraraka and Red Riot, right? Like there are ways in which they are like more developed as heroes than like Lemillion's pretty unassailable in a lot of ways out of the gates, but like these other two, like the confidence that Kirishima has over Sun Eater is kind of awesome, and Uraraka has this analytical side of her that like instantly is showing up the moment she's in this work study. And I think all of it is really to the credit of those characters. I think that that's a great sign of growth and place that they grow.
Do you think that Froki was going to be in this arc before she became super popular? Because she does not fit in. Like,
certainly she breaks the symmetry in a lot of ways.
What do you mean?
Like, we have 1-1-1, but it's instead 1-1-2.
I understand that, but I'm saying
weird.
Well, sure.
That's what I'm saying. Is like that's why I would agree. That's I don't
No,
necessarily.
It's not. There's two guys from the big three, one girl from the big three, and then then Deku, and then the two girls. Oh no, Red Riot. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Like I think that it's, and I'm talking about literal symmetry of like 1-to-1 correlates up and down the spectrum, not necessarily like number of people in different genders.
I know the argument is dead, but I'm starting to think that Froki might be the bad guy.
Starting to think.
Well, I had put it to rest because I was like, well, she's too popular now. She can't be the.
Well, that's just how they're really going to get us all.
That's true.
I have no idea. I think that.
What? Any other favorite storylines though?
I mean, clearly, how much importance the festival takes on for Deku is an important storyline in and of itself.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about him.
The villain in that fight isn't really the villain that Deku's fighting, but the threat of sadness.
Sure. I have some strong opinions that we'll get to. Actually, in Lovitz, not Could Be Betters, which would not have been true before my rewatch. So, I have a couple favorite storylines. The number one is Deku and Mirio trying to. I don't know if atone is the right word. Like, they clearly feel like they let this child down. And having this driving force. I really like how both of them are feeling the same way, right? Which is like, All Might's gone. And if I'm going to be that one day, if I like how they said, like, if I can't save one girl, how can I be the greatest hero?
It's such a logical fallacy, but also at the same time, it's so important for them to think about.
You know what's funny, though, is I don't think it's just them. I think all the heroes of this mission are feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Like, obviously there's a bigger picture than just the one girl, right? They're making this quirk-ending drug, right? That could just destroy humanity in a lot of ways.
Well, it makes the girl part of the big picture, but actually the big picture is the girl in a lot of ways, right?
Like so it's
all about the girl, but
in a
what
lot
the girl
of ways
represents is different.
Right. It's so interesting, and I love that aspect. But that's just the first arc. One of my other favorite storylines is the. Oh man, I'm gonna get so much crap on the internet for this. So first of all, the first time that I watched this, thought that, what is her name?
Who? Describe.
I can pull it up. It's the I thought that, La Brava. I thought she was a kid. She's only not only is she not a kid, she's actually the first dwarfism character in this show.
Okay.
Which makes me feel really bad for my initial impressions of this arc and for my problems with the arc, and also the internet should feel bad that they didn't consider the fact that maybe they would introduce a character with dwarfism to the show, and we just all assumed that she was a child.
Yeah. That's definitely an interesting piece of context.
I still think that there is an interesting storyline here that gets talked about, and I like the way that Gentle handles it. Which is, he very much tries to avoid the power dynamic of the love interest. Like, he wants it to be a job for, like, well, he understands that she likes him. He wants it to be a job. And he finally gives up, but I don't think he gives up until he actually develops feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what this tells me is that he realizes the mistake in abusing this relationship and then tries to do what he can to fix it in the end. Even though, it's hard because, like, people don't want to show problems, right? They want to, unless it's in an extremely negative light. And I think that I hate, this was my least favorite arc, my least favorite part of the entire show before. And in my rewatching and research, I realized this is not a child that he's dealing with. It's a girl with dwarfism. And not only that, but in paying close attention to Gentle, he is trying to push her away from that aspect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I appreciated her quirk. I appreciated, and this was not true the first time I watched it, but I don't know. I thought that it was an interesting storyline where he realizes that he has abused this girl's love for him and realizes that he has, some atoning to do himself.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, like, he has atoning to do for other stuff. Like, he's obviously a criminal, but, at least he realizes that mistake. And I wanted to call that out. And then my last favorite storyline, is actually probably just Red Riot's growth.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be Red Riot and Sun Eater together. Like, I just think that
they both enter with a lot of what the other is lacking.
Yeah, that's just one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah, they're the ones I'm thinking about when I talk about the relationship between these 1A and 2A students.
Yeah, I do think, for what it's worth, that while I think the last two episodes are the best episodes of the season, so much of that is, well, even when watching the first time was like, oh my gosh, that was some of the best anime I've ever watched. It is even better when you watch season 5. So it's like that. Cool.
I agree. All of that is so true. I think that the La Brava and Gentle Criminal are, like, actually compelling characters, and their role in the story is so just there, right? Like, they're there to provide an obstacle for Deku. They're not necessarily there for any of their own goals.
It's interesting too, because, like, I really hated the idea of, like, a YouTube villain. I was like, this is the stupidest thing in the world.
I actually think it's, like, prescient in a lot of ways. Which I think is really cool.
It's so funny because other people love the idea of it, but I don't know. It the YouTube thing did not grow on me, but the understanding of like the dynamic did. I did understand, like, okay, I think this is an important story to tell.
Yeah. Also, the band, the making of a band was sweet. I want to say that, like, I love that.
That song was going to be one of my love-its, so I was saving that for love-its.
That's so true. But I also think that, like, just in general, Kyoko as a character is really developed because of it.
That whole thing was great. I agree with you.
Cool. Does that make we're moving on into our could be betters?
Yeah, I only have one could be better. And it's a little nitpicky. And I don't know how to fix it, and it's funny because it was one of your could be betters on another episode that we did, and I gave you crap for it.
I cannot wait to give you crap for it.
Which is, it's so hard to follow up that first arc.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do.
Well, I mean, I think that
was actually your could be better in season 2 of this show.
Yeah, no, I think it was. I think it's really hard, and I think it's interesting that the way this show structures things is that the seasons tend to be, like, arcs tend to be complete themselves inside of seasons.
Yeah.
Where instead of opening a season on the unresolved final arc of the previous season,
yeah,
which is different in a lot of ways because it means that they're shared in their importance, and the rising action of the rest of the season doesn't feel as bad because you like know it needs to happen anyways. But the fact that they go through rising action to a huge climax in 15 episodes and then have 10 episodes of the season to figure out what else they're going to do with it is like a weird structure. But actually, I would say that the way that this season ended is like
the ending,
some of the coolest ways.
I agree with that. I think that my could be better overall is that, like, it's such a sharp adjustment for this one. Whereas, like, the tournament arc into,
we're still seeing the waves of the tournament arc as they play out over the next thing.
Whereas here it's like
what happened to these three characters?
Yeah, you just leave Deku completely, and you're like, now all of a sudden we're going to remedial classes with like literal 6-year-olds. It's just like such a sharp turn that even on the rewatch it was off-putting. I was like,
little kids have a big role in this season, is all I'm going to say.
It's true. They do. You know what? There were parts I still loved. I loved this watch through so much. I think just the sharp nature of that, like, honestly, I don't know. It feels like there could be like a transition episode after. I mean, obviously the manga would have been written differently, but that's my only could be better for this season.
I think it's a good could be better.
Like,
but I think it's like part of the show's structure, so I don't really know what to do about it. So,
yeah.
Well,
do you have
tell
one?
me about the song. Oh, could it be betters? I mean, no, I think this is a great show. It's such a good season. Like, I think it's the pacing is actually great, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think that to our protagonist, the first arc and the latter arc, right, is not so clearly defined as an A and B, is better defined in this one than it was in season 2. Right, sure. The connection into the second half of season 2 is over a different character's concern.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'll do love it's. My first love it is just it's getting to see Deku's potential because of a combination of quirks was pretty amazing. Like, obviously, like, you now have something that you're building towards with just one piece of what Deku is. Like, when Deku masters himself, this is the kind of potential that he has. That's one love it. That song is in my top 25 most played songs on my phone.
It's a good song.
Hero 2 like makes me cry sometimes. If you get the chance, just listen to the song while reading the lyrics and just sitting down and thinking about the type of person that you want to be, I think that a lot of people can relate to this. I don't think that it's just me. I think that people want to help other. It's funny. I think that a lot of people think that human nature is in a negative light. Like they think people are inherently bad and evil. I don't think that's true. I think people are inherently good and don't like seeing other people suffer. And I think that this song actually highlights what I believe in human beings. So, and then my last love it is Endeavor putting his fist up and me just completely sobbing. Because I don't want to root for the guy.
Yeah.
But also, how could you not after that moment?
Well, it's also a situation of what happens when the person you're depending on is someone you don't like, right? I think that's such an interesting.
Oh yeah, they did such a good job with that too.
Piece of tension.
Talk about that for a second.
Well, I mean, I just think that the way that they've set it up, right, is they're talking about this vacuum that exists because of All Might being out of the picture now, and so much of what Endeavor had that All Might had was the raw force, without necessarily the attitude. And so over the season, we see at times Endeavor's attitude changing, right? We see the way he interacts with All Might at their conversation is during the remedial exam is so important for what happens later in that season. But also,
and in season 5, it's such a setup, right? You're
yeah.
Keep going though.
It is very connected though. It's so cool to see what matters at the end of the season going into the next season. But Endeavor had the thing that Endeavor has is strength in excess, and it's so fascinating to see that that's almost not enough. What he has is almost not enough at the end of the season, just in that terms. But then he also, once he succeeds on those terms, he does add in the All Might stuff to it, the character part of being a hero, and it's fascinating. But it's great tension. I think another love it of mine that I really like is how in this season, the second half of the season, there is a real undercurrent of thinking about quirks and their benefits beyond their potential for fighting, their potential for beauty, their potential for entertainment, their potential for just making life easier. And I think a part of it is it's growing to show that people are not just their quirks in a lot of ways. It's the way they use their quirks. It's the goals they have. And someone whose quirk in a lot of ways has been viewed as a weapon her whole life, Aerie, right? How can we weaponize this quirk? I think it's that discussion is being laid there to help her later on.
To add to that, I think that in addition to that, if you remove yourself from just the world of My Hero Academia, I think what it's actually talking about is how do people's differences make them valuable and special, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, there was a I don't know if it was an article. I was reading something about the percentage of people with groundbreaking inventions and the likelihood that they had, I think it said ADHD, and it was astronomical.
Yeah. Observations that you would have that other people would.
Yeah, just
so crucial there.
It was something it's probably true that Albert Einstein, they listed all these people. They're these people had ADHD. They were not neurotypical individuals. And I think one of the things that what you just said, right? The quirks used for beauty, the quirks used for whatever it is. I think that we could take a lesson from that and understand I have a lot of friends that are on the spectrum, and quirk is the right word. I have come to love their quirkiness rather than their neurodivergent selves rather than finding problems with it.
Yeah.
So
it is good to be able to let down the mask of neurodivergence and be able to engage with things just the unfiltered process of your brain. This season, like I would go on about Lovitz, but I think I'd be repeating myself in a lot of ways. We've talked about all the really cool things that happened in the season.
We did miss one that we have to mention before we move on, and that is the play.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. So, yeah. What's next, Wes?
Oh, rating it. What do we think?
I'm giving it a 5. I think it is. I think it is actually one of the best seasons in anime history.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic season. It's definitely like the one that when I think this was out when I first watched My Hero Academia, or was in progress. I think season 4 was ongoing, but like this arc was over by the time I caught up, the first arc, and like I think that was the thing that made it all feel worthwhile when I watched it the first time. It was like, wow, if I got here, yeah, of course I need to be watching this. Yeah,
it was. There were just so many episodes that I was like, this is the best episode. This is the best episode. This is the best. It was unreal. I couldn't. I don't know. I couldn't ask for more, and I think even some of our Lovitz eliminate my could be better, and it's funny because if I had not rewatched it, I would have a lot of could be betters for this season.
Yeah,
but I actually think that watching it for this episode,
well, it's complex this season. It's got heavy feelings. It's got like the fights have things that are going on in them other than just the fighting.
It almost feels like Harry Potter book 4, where like, you know, at the end of season 3 things started to get a little darker, right? And now, oh man, is it just following? Are we getting 7 seasons total? It's just Harry Potter style of progression, but like,
I have no idea, Spencer. We got a lot more years of school. 2 more years.
Let me.
And we've barely gotten through one of them.
Let me tell you a story. We do not have a lot more years of school. Spoiler.
Okay. Well, that is a spoiler. Either way, what a fantastic show.
It really was. It was really good. You can find me, Spencer H. You can find West at East_monotone. You can find the show at Need to Nerd Pod on Twitter. And if you want to find the stuff that I'm doing, I'm no longer doing Mythicast. I will be returning to constructive criticism for the constructivecriticism.com network starting next week. Wes,
Sweet.
Thanks for doing the show with me this week, man. Thanks for adjusting your schedule for me. I hope that your character levels up today. And, yeah.
I think we leveled up pretty recently, so I'm not 100% sure on that one, but thank you for the wish.
Yeah, no problem. No problem, homie. And, you know.
I know.
You know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. I was going to say, plus, you know, stay plus ultra, but I thought that you would
Took
get
you
it,
too long.
You know? Yeah. Well, no, I
knew, so I knew.
Oh, you knew. All right. Thank you everybody so much for listening. We'll see you all next week with another episode of the Need to Nerd podcast.